The Metropolitan Museum's grand hall gleamed with pretension and privilege. I adjusted my worn leather jacket, the same one I'd worn while inspecting every construction site from Shanghai to New York. James had begged me to dress like a proper CEO. But after 3 decades of building skyscrapers, I'd earned the right to wear what felt authentic. "Excuse me." A sharp voice cut through the pre-event bustle. "Service entrance is around back." Victoria Hamilton, the gala's coordinator, clicked toward me in heels that probably cost more than my first tool set. Her perfect makeup twisted into a frown as she gestured at my steel-toed boots. "We're expecting Sarah Chen tonight," she continued, consulting her tablet. "Everything must be immaculate. She's revolutionizing modern architecture." I nodded, studying the hall's structural supports with professional interest. "The beamwork here seems a bit dated. Have you considered reinforcing the east wing?" Victoria's head snapped up. "How would you possibly know about—" "Mom." James's voice echoed across the marble floor. "I thought we agreed you'd wear the Armani." Victoria's tablet clattered to the ground. "Mom," she stammered. "But that would mean you're—" "Sarah Chen," I confirmed, still examining the ceiling. "And that support beam definitely needs attention." The color drained from Victoria's face as she recognized the woman whose biography she undoubtedly memorized for tonight's introduction. "Ms. Chen. I didn't." "Mom likes to inspect every venue personally," James explained, shooting me the same exasperated look he perfected since childhood. "Though she promised to dress appropriately tonight." "The building tells me more than any fancy dress could," I replied, already moving toward the main hall. "Like those micro cracks in the western archway. They're speaking volumes." I'll have maintenance look at it immediately," Victoria stuttered, backing away. "I'm so terribly sorry, Ms. Chen. If I'd known." "But that's rather the point, isn't it?" I called after her, retreating form. "We make assumptions about who belongs where, yet buildings don't care about appearances. Architecture is about substance, not surface." James sighed, helping me examine the questionable support beam. "You could have told her who you were immediately, and missed the chance to see how they treat people they think are beneath them. Besides, she just gave me the perfect opening for my speech about accessibility in architectural design." The grand doors burst open as Marcus Wellington Ivy, the awards chairman, rushed in. "Ms. Chen, we had a VIP entrance arranged. Why didn't you come through the front?" "The service entrance provided better structural insights," I replied, tapping the marble column. "Did you know this building's foundation needs significant work?" What?" He blinked, then turned to James. "Mr. Chen Goldman, your mother is—" "Brilliant and impossible," James finished. "Yes, I know. I grew up watching her reject billion-dollar projects over safety concerns." "The Singapore cancellation taught you more about integrity than any architecture school could," I reminded him. "Sometimes the best design is the one you don't build." More socialites and developers were filtering in, their expressions shifting from dismissal to recognition as they spotted James. The whispers started. "That's Sarah Chen, changed the Manhattan skyline. Turned down the Dubai contract." "We have a private preparation room," Marcus said anxiously, "and a designer outfit, if you prefer." "This jacket has seen me through every major project," I replied. "It knows more about architecture than half the people here. Now about these support beams." The next hour passed in a blur of structural observations and awkward apologies. Victoria reappeared with premium champagne, then fled when I attempted to discuss the building's problematic ventilation system. Several executives who'd earlier ignored my presence now hovered nearby, desperately trying to join the conversation. "Your mother is quite unconventional," I overheard one telling James. "She says buildings taught her that appearance and reality rarely match," James replied. "So she likes to see how people act when they don't know they're dealing with a billionaire." By the time the hall filled with architects and investors, word had spread about the morning's mistaken identity. Victoria had disappeared completely, though she left a handwritten apology note that included 3 references to my groundbreaking work in sustainable urban development. "Ready for your keynote?" James asked, straightening my collar in a gesture that reminded me of his grandfather, who taught me my first lessons about construction and dignity on those early job sites. "Almost," I said, pulling out my old notebook. The same one where I first sketched the innovative designs that would eventually transform skylines across 3 continents. I'm adding a new section about architectural elitism and its effect on urban accessibility, using this morning as a case study. The best designs come from understanding how real people interact with spaces, I smiled. Besides, they're all expecting a lecture on sustainable skyscrapers. Why not show them how social barriers create structural ones? The grand hall buzzed with uncomfortable recognition as I placed my work boots prominently on the podium. In the front row, Victoria Hamilton seemed to be studying the floor's marble pattern with intense fascination. Let's talk about barriers. I began pulling up my first slide. A split image of myself in work clothes beside one in formal attire at a project ribbon cutting. Architecture, at its core, is about creating spaces that welcome, not exclude. Yet here we are, in an industry that often confuses luxury with value. How many innovative designs have we missed because we couldn't see past our own prejudices? James, standing at the back of the room, suppressed a smile. He'd watched me turn uncomfortable moments into teaching opportunities his entire life. Consider this case study. I continued, clicking to the next slide showing the evolution of Chen Towers. When I proposed this design in 1995, every major firm rejected it. One executive suggested I stick to basic construction work. That project has since won 12 international awards and revolutionized sustainable urban living. The audience shifted uneasily. Several prominent architects suddenly became very interested in their phones. The same design, when presented by a male colleague, received immediate attention. I continued. The only variable that changed was the messenger. In architecture, we call this a structural flaw. In society, we call it bias. Marcus Wellington Ivy, who had been one of those early rejectors, though he didn't know I remembered, loosened his bow tie uncomfortably. But this isn't about assigning blame, I assured them, moving to a 3D holographic display of my latest project. It's about identifying missed opportunities. This morning, I conducted a social experiment in this very building. A young architect raised her hand. Ms. Chen, are you saying you deliberately didn't correct people's assumptions? Exactly, I smiled. Just as I've done at countless sites over 30 years. The data is fascinating. Would you like to see the correlation between how I'm treated and the innovative designs I'm allowed to present? I switched to a new slide showing 3 decades of statistics. In 932 documented incidents of being mistaken for maintenance staff, I was subsequently able to identify critical structural issues that those same institutions had overlooked. Their bias created our opportunity. Victoria finally found her voice. But that's rather manipulative, isn't it? Is it? I adjusted my presentation. Or is it manipulative that, after building a $12 billion development empire, winning multiple global awards, and transforming urban landscapes, I'm still immediately directed to service entrances based on appearance and ethnicity? The silence was worth more than all my properties combined. Here's an interesting pattern. I continued. This morning, multiple people lectured others about my achievements without recognizing me. What does that tell us about the gap between architectural vision and social reality? James stepped forward right on cue, carrying my original sketchbook. Mom's been documenting these interactions as part of a larger study on accessibility in architecture. A study which, I added, has identified over $50 billion in missed opportunities in underserved markets. That's not just a social justice issue, it's a massive design failure. I clicked to a new slide showing project success rates. The firms with the most diverse design teams consistently create more successful, accessible spaces. Yet, our industry remains remarkably homogeneous. In architectural terms, this is unsustainable. Marcus finally spoke up. Ms. Chen, what's your recommendation for addressing this design flaw? First, we acknowledge that good intentions aren't enough, I replied, gesturing to the hall around us. Just as sustainable architecture required us to completely rethink traditional building methods, addressing industry bias requires us to completely rethink our design process. But you're Sarah Chen, Victoria protested. You're a legend in modern architecture. Am I, or am I a design opportunity you almost missed this morning? How many other Sarah Chens are out there, being directed to service entrances instead of design studios? The rest of the keynote wove between architectural theory and social commentary. demonstrating how overlooked perspectives often led to breakthrough innovations. By the end, even the most skeptical attendees were taking notes. In conclusion, I said, gathering my materials, architecture is about creating spaces where everyone belongs. Perhaps it's time we apply that principle to our own industry. The applause was thunderous, though I noticed it held a different quality than usual, less automatic appreciation, more uncomfortable self-reflection. As people filed out, many stopped to apologize for their earlier assumptions. I waved them off with a smile. Don't apologize, design better. The next revolutionary architect might come through the service entrance. Mom, James approached with Marcus Wellington. The board wants to discuss a partnership opportunity. To build buildings or break barriers? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Both, Marcus admitted. We clearly need the latter to succeed in the former. I considered the offer, thinking of all the other innovators who'd been dismissed, all the brilliant designs overlooked because they came in unexpected packages. I'll consider it, I said finally, on one condition. We establish a fund specifically for overlooked architects. Let's turn industry bias into design opportunity. Agreed, Marcus nodded quickly. Though perhaps we should get you a proper office first. Oh no, I smiled, patting my worn jacket. I'll keep my current approach. It's proven to be an excellent structural integrity test. James rolled his eyes, but I caught his proud smile. He understood that sometimes the best designs came not from formal presentations, but from moments of forced self-reflection. As we left the hall, I noticed Victoria organizing a diversity and inclusion panel for the afternoon session. Sometimes, I reflected, the best transformations come from redesigning people's perspectives. 6 months after the gala, my service entrance incident had become a case study at top architecture schools. My work boots and leather jacket were now displayed at the Museum of Modern Architecture, alongside a simple plaque, Design Sees Beyond Appearances, Sarah Chen's Accessibility Tests, 2025. The most remarkable transformation came from Victoria Hamilton. After our encounter, she launched a successful consulting firm helping architecture practices identify their blind spots. Her tagline, "Don't miss your Sarah Chen moment." You won't believe this, James told me during our weekly site inspection. Victoria's firm just discovered an incredible sustainable housing project designed by a former maintenance worker who'd been studying architecture at night. Most firms wouldn't even look at his portfolio. Let me guess, I smiled, adjusting my hard hat. They didn't like his presentation style. They didn't like anything about him. Until Victoria made them do your service entrance tests. Now he's revolutionizing affordable housing design. The ripple effects continued spreading through the industry. Major firms had started implementing blind design reviews, where proposals were evaluated without seeing the architect's identities. Several discovered that removing visual bias increased their project success rates by over 50%. The Chen Innovation Fund for Overlooked Architects, which we launched after the gala, had already backed 40 designers, mostly from non-traditional backgrounds. More importantly, these architects were encouraged to come as they were, no expensive suits required. Mom, James said during one project review, remember how you used to tell me that buildings don't care who designs them? Yesterday, one of our fund recipients said she finally felt free to be both an architect and herself. The industry had made other changes too. Marcus Wellington implemented anonymous first-round project submissions, leading to a surprisingly diverse portfolio. Service staff at architecture events were now treated as potential future innovators. Small changes, perhaps, but in architecture, small adjustments could transform entire structures. One morning, I visited the Metropolitan Museum where it had all started, this time for a design competition we were hosting. The contestants wore everything from traditional cultural dress to work clothes to hoodies. Ms. Chen, one young designer, called out, "We're using your accessibility principle. Want to see our proposals?" I settled into a seat, noting how confidently they owned their space, their ideas, their potential. No one was trying to fit someone else's blueprint of success. Victoria taught us to focus on innovation, not appearance, another architect explained. Something about design opportunities hiding in plain sight. Victoria, now a regular speaker on inclusion in architecture, had taken my impromptu lesson and turned it into a movement. Every major architecture conference now included the Chen tests, sending plainly dressed designers to gauge how they were treated. But the real victory came in small moments, a woman in a hijab confidently presenting to major developers, a former janitor sharing his innovative urban planning concepts, a brilliant mind being noticed for their ideas rather than their outfit. The thing about architecture, I told an Architectural Digest reporter who asked about the changes, is that it's supposed to be about creating spaces for everyone. When we let bias determine who gets to design those spaces, we're not just being unfair, we're building a flawed future. James found me later at a construction site, still wearing my work boots while reviewing billion-dollar projects. "You planned all this, didn't you?" he asked. "That morning at the gala, you knew exactly what you were doing." "Like any good design," I replied, studying the latest blueprints. I simply identified a structural weakness and let the solution reveal itself. He laughed, putting on his own hard hat. "Mom, you're still impossible." "No," I corrected, watching another generation of diverse architects transform our skylines. "I'm just a builder in comfortable boots, just like architecture should be." The next day, I received a package from Victoria. Inside was a new pair of steel-toed boots with a note. "Sometimes the best designs come from the ground up. Thank you for teaching me to really see." I placed them beside my desk, next to the plans for my latest project, a $5 billion sustainable community designed by a former maintenance worker who taught himself architecture. He presented his ideas wearing work clothes, and we'd seen exactly what mattered: the future.